are in Parashat Pinchas, and some congregations have the custom during the summer to read from Ethics of the Fathers, what is called Masechet Avot, the Mishnah of Avot. And in the Mishnah of Avot, in chapter 1, Mishnah Vav, there is a famous Mishnah, a quote that is very famous. I use it many, many times, and it's something that many need to acquire and use on a daily basis. And the Mishnah says, Yehoshua ben Prachya, a rabbi, a Tana, a great sage, say, Vehevedan kol adam lekaf zchut. Always judge a person favorably. Okay, on the surface seems very noble. You have to judge every person favorably. And if you look a little bit deeper into it, then you would want to be judged favorably. Most of the times when you act, you are not judged favorably. And I'm talking about by other people, not by God. But that's the reality, that most people don't judge others favorably. The judgment comes very harsh. So the same way that you would want to be judged favorably, then this Tana, this sage, tells you you have to judge every person favorably. And we're going to talk a lot about that because throughout the last 2-3 years, we've been learning a lot about the concept that is called Tikkun HaMidot, the refinement of character, which really is one of the main goals that we need to focus on here in this world, in our life, is to refine myself. I know many, many people that they learn a lot of Torah, they do a lot of mitzvot, but there's no refinement, and the complete opposite. Rude, disgusting, judgmental, vulgar, loud, etc., full of anger, full of hate, but they have a lot of Torah and mitzvot. So really, one can question, what's the value of all these mitzvot if you are rude and vulgar and quick to anger and you treat your wife horrible or your husband or your kids or whatever? As our sages say, derech eretz kadma laTorah. You have to have a little bit to be what's called a mensch, to be with a good temper and a nice person before the Torah. So the concept of judging people favorably, it's something that needs to be taken very, very serious because we are very judgmental as human beings towards others. And we're very quick to be judging other people. So today we're going to focus a lot on this topic, but first we need to understand this concept that the Tana Yehoshua ben Prachya says. What's interesting is that Rambam, Maimonides, says this is not a recommendation. This is a mitzvah from the Torah. It's not a recommendation by a great sage, okay, please judge people favorably. Rambam says in Sefer HaMitzvot, this is a mitzvah from the Torah. Which mitzvah exactly? Where can we find it? Go to Parashat Kedoshim, Book of Vayikra, chapter 19, verse 15, and it says, Betzedek tishvot amitecha. Translation, you shall judge your fellow with righteousness. Rambam says, this is a mitzvah. This is no recommendation here. Now, if you're going and analyzing this mitzvah, it's actually referring to the Great Assembly, to the Sanhedrin, to a Jewish court. And what does it mean? Let's say now there's an assembly of 3 Jewish judges, which is called a Beit Din, and comes on one side a very respectful, honorable, rich individual, and there's a claim against him by some regular, simple, not rich, even poor, not well known, not well respected individual. Now you would think that the judges will be, this person is respectful, he's honorable, he's rich, he's famous, he's known, he's smart. That guy doesn't know what he's talking about. We'll tend to have favor to the honorable person. So the Torah says, no. Betzedek tishvot amitecha, you shall judge your fellow with righteousness. So what if that person, one person is rich and famous and knowledgeable and great and the other one is not? So that's the idea of the mitzvah in the Torah. But Rambam says that's not only applying all to judges. It's applying to each and every one of us that we have to judge every person favorably. Okay, clear enough. But now we're presented with a very difficult question. And I'm going to read again, a quote again, the Mishnah in Hebrew. It's a little bit easier to learn Torah in Hebrew because it says, Ve'vedan et kol adam lekav zchut. You should judge all people favorably. Really? All people I need to judge favorably? You know how many liars are in this world? Do I need to judge them favorably? You know how many cheaters and thieves and molesters, rapers, politicians? You know how many people that are crooked, I need to judge them favorably? Say, judge the good people favorably. But now I'm dealing now with a crook. Everybody knows the person is a thief, a crook, a liar, a cheat. I need to judge him favorably? Well, what kind of a request from that? Now the sad reality is that when I'm looking around in the world is full of thieves and full of liars and full of crooks. And many of them, I know for a fact, that person is a liar, that person is a crook, this person is a thief. Why would I judge them favorably? Because they really need the money. They really needed to ruin somebody's life, so they went and slandered them all over the city. Why should I judge them favorably? So now we need to understand, what does the sage, what does the Torah mean? Judge kol adam. That doesn't make sense even. How would you expect me now to judge everybody favorably? Okay, so there's a story in the Talmud. You can find it in Tractate Shabbat, page 127b. And it's talking about a story about a person who judged another fellow favorably. Now really, when you're reading the story, it sounds like the person who it's talking about, I don't know the word in English. I tried to find nice words in English. In Hebrew, it's called a friar. I don't know why I use the word in English because the word is not so nice. I will use maybe naive and gullible. But there's another word that is used commonly in English. I don't think it's such a nice word, but somebody that's easily been taken advantage of, okay? Now, interestingly, in the Talmud, it doesn't even says who the person is. It just tells the story. There's another book, it's called the She'ilta, that, just that you have a little bit of background, what's the She'ilta? About 1,000 years ago, there's a certain individual who lived. He's called Rav Acha Gaon. There was a period of what's called Geonim, the period of the geniuses. And again, it's not necessarily the right translation, but there's different periods, the Tanaim, Emoraim. This is from the period that is called Geonim, and approximately about 1,000 years ago. And he gave a lot of, discourses about the Torah. And when they went and they gathered all these information together and they made books from it. And what's interesting is that he's, of course, much closer to the time of Beit HaMikdash and the time of the sages. And so they had much more information than we. We, with all the generations that passed, we lost a lot of information because a lot of the information was passed from word of mouth. So he has a lot of midrashim, a lot of stories, a lot of information. So he gave a lot of discourses about the Torah, and they gathered it into books. It's called She'ilta. So in the She'ilta, it says that this individual that is very naive, gullible, and taken advantage of easily, that it's talking about, it's Rabbi Akiva. Interestingly, the Talmud doesn't say that it's Rabbi Akiva, but nevertheless, Rav Acha Gaon says it's Rabbi Akiva, and this is the story. And Rabbi Akiva is the naive one. And the Talmud doesn't call him naive. It just says it's a story about a person who judged another person favorably. What's the story? Is that Rabbi Akiva was a very poor and simple individual who worked for a certain man called Kalba Savoa, who was one of the richest people in the generation. And he was a shepherd. He took care of his sheep. Eventually, he married his daughter Rachel, which, of course, Kalba Savoa says, I don't need my daughter to marry like a shepherd. And needless to say that he didn't accept them and the marriage itself. And in the beginning of their marriage, way before Rabbi Akiva went to learn in yeshiva, they were so poor that they barely had what to eat. So at some point, Rabbi Akiva says, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I have to go and work. The story says that he went to work for 3 years. That he left his wife. They lived here in the north. It says in the Galil, and he went all the way to the south. Saying in other words, he didn't come back. So for 3 years he didn't come back. 3 years he worked extremely hard serving in a house of a very rich individual. Sweep the floor, take out the laundry, take out the garbage, clean the stables, whatever. Made him work from morning to night. For 3 years he didn't get paid. He got a bed, he got food, he had a place to sleep, a shower, and that's it, and he never got paid. After 3 years, the story says that it was Erev Yom Kippur, and he told his boss, listen, I miss my wife, I haven't been home for 3 years, I want to go for the holidays, I want to see my wife. Master says, go ahead, you're free to go. So Rabbi Akiva tells him, can you pay me? I mean, you didn't pay me for 3 years, how am I going to come home? I went away from home so I can come and provide parnasa, livelihood for my wife. What am I going to come empty-handed? What did I do for 3 years? Person tells him, I don't have any money. What do you mean you don't have any money? This is a 20 million shekel house. What do you mean you don't have any money? You're like the richest person in the area. He says, no, I don't have any money for you. So he says, okay, so why don't you give me one of your wagons? I'll load it with fruit and vegetables. Give me that. He says, no, I don't have any fruit and vegetables to give you or wagons. He says, okay, so why don't you give me some property? Give me a piece of land. Something. I worked for 3 years. He says, I have nothing to give you. He says, okay, fine. And he left. And he goes home. With not even 1 shekel, $1, 1 penny, however you want to say it. Now you would think, what kind of individual is that? You worked for him for 3 years and you're just leaving like that? The guy didn't pay you one dime. Okay, Rabbi Akiva goes home. He spends the holidays with his wife. After the holiday, the man that he worked for shows up with 3 wagons full of food, money, clothing, furniture, anything, which will be equivalent in our day to 3 tractor trailers, 18-wheelers, a 40-foot container. 3 of them, says, here's your pay for 3 years. Okay. Now he tells Rabbi Akiva, tell me, I have a question for you. When I told you I don't have any money for you, what did you think about me? I mean, you just left. What did you think? So Rabbi Akiva says, you know what? I thought that you vowed that all your property is going to go to charity and you don't have anything. So the person said, you're right. I have a child who's very lazy because I'm very wealthy. He doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't work. He doesn't do anything. And he constantly comes to ask for money. So I went and I said, you know what? Since you're so lazy, I'm now I'm making a vow that all my belongings, all my money, all my possession is going to go to charity. You don't have nothing. And then he says, but then you came to me and asked for money. And when he told me, do you have money? I said, no, because I gave all my money to charity. Give me property. I don't have any property. Give me fruit and vegetables. I don't have that. Give me wagons. I don't have anything. Then I realized how bad was my vow. I went to the Beit Din. They nullified the vow. And now I come to pay you what you deserve. Wow. Very interesting story. But again, we are presented with the question, is that what I'm expected to do? And am I supposed to be a Rabbi Akiva, works for somebody for 3 years and doesn't get paid and just says, oh, okay. So the story is very noble and Rabbi Akiva is a great individual. But is that what expected from me? That I'll just give up, give in, let go, anything can come, anyone can use me, everything is good to go. I'm just judging everybody favorably. I won't be able to do such a thing. Neither you and anyone else. Maybe a Rabbi Akiva. Maybe you can be used once or twice. But there's also a limit how much people can use you, how good you can be, how much you can bemet, judge people favorably. Any other person would want to kill this employer. Rabbi Akiva says, I thought that you gave a vow that you gave over all your property. Okay. In order to understand this concept, let's see what we are presented in this parasha. In this parasha, we are reading about a certain individual that comes and takes the law to his own hand. He kills another person without asking, without getting permission from the leader, Moshe Rabbeinu, without any consent, without nothing. He just comes and kills another person. Now, of course, everybody's upset at him. And then, needless to say, everybody's accusing, murderer, a killer. How dare you come and kill another individual? And needless to say, everybody's resenting him, hating him. There's a lot of animosity towards this individual. And we're talking about Pinchas, of course. Then the Torah comes and testifies and says, no, what he did was with a good intention. Judge him favorably. So we see, just imagine the scenario. You don't know what's going on and what's the background. You just see some young guy grabbing a spear, which wasn't really a spear, it was a romach, it was like a kind of like a peg, what they peg the tents down, like a big piece of metal, and he murders two seemingly innocent people. And the Torah says, no, judge him favorably. I know he looks like a murderer. I know he looks like a completely psychopath. But judge him favorably because everything that he did was with a good intention. Now imagine you don't know the story behind it. How would you judge a person like that? You would judge a person as a murderer. And of course it will explain why everybody was angry, upset, resentful, hating. Okay. What's interesting is that the Torah praises him. Now, by the way, the story happens in the previous parasha. In this week's parasha, the Torah opens by just praising Pinchas, ben Elazar, ben Aaron HaKohen, and this and that, praising him that he was an amazing, comes from a lineage of great individuals and his actions are great, and more than that, he's going to be blessed for all generations. Okay, so let me give you a little bit the background of the story. Previous parasha, we read about the story with Balak and Bilam. Balak hires Bilam to curse the Israeli nation, the Jewish nation. The curse doesn't work. Bilam and Balak are very upset. Bilam says to Balak, listen, I know the curse didn't work. No refunds, by the way. No 30-day money back guaranteed. The money stays by me. But I'll give you an advice. Since the curse didn't work, go to back to your city, bring all the young ladies, dress them with mini skirts, high heels, put some lipstick on them, let them take their hair down, send the young ladies. All the young men will go and of course won't be able to hold themselves. They're all going to sin with these ladies, and their God doesn't like that. And sure enough, that's what he does. They go to the Bnot Moab, to the girls of Moab. They send them to seduce and to tempt the men. Needless to say, a whole big mess, and starts a plague. People are dying left and right. They don't know what to do. The people of the tribe of Shimon come to their president, to their leader, to their chief of staff, however you want to call him. It's called a Nasi. I wouldn't necessarily translate it as a president, but the leader of the tribe. And they say, listen, there's a big plague here. People are dying. Stop it. Maybe you should buy some vaccines from Pfizer. So Shimon didn't want to buy vaccines from Pfizer. Of course, that's my additions. But nevertheless, they tell him, stop the plague. What does he do? His name is Zimri. He goes and he takes a certain young girl. Her name is Cosbi. He's the leader of the tribe of Shimon. And he takes this young Midneyite, how do you say, Midneyite girl, Bnot Midian, Cosbi Batzur, Midianit, and he goes with her to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, this woman, can I be with her, or is she prohibited for me to be with her? So of course Moshe Rabbeinu says, of course you can be with her. So he says, oh yeah? So who allowed you to be with your wife? Your wife is also from Midian, right? His wife is Tzipora, the daughter of Yitro, Kohen Midian. So if you telling me I'm not allowed to be with this young lady, who allowed you to be with your wife? What's the difference between us? Now can you imagine first of all, the boldness coming to Moshe Rabbeinu, who allowed you? Technically Moshe Rabbeinu should have said, who allowed you to even open your mouth? Turn around and leave. I don't need to consult with you who I'm with. But nevertheless, on the surface, seems like a legit question. That Zimri says, if you're allowed to be with your wife, Tzipora, who's the daughter of Yitro, the Kohen Midian, the spiritual leader of Midian, what's the difference? I want to be with this young lady. Needless to say, that everybody's standing there completely shocked. Nobody knows what to do. Comes Pinchas, gets upset, and he takes this romach, this spear, this peg, and he, needless to say, stabs them both while they're physically together, having relations. Oh, can you imagine the scene that's going on there? Now, really on the surface, or if you're standing from the side, let's say you're from the tribe of Shimon, this Pinchas looks like some psychopath. Our leader came with a very good question. And we're not expecting to see a murder here. We're expecting to get a good question, a good answer. Okay, needless to say, CNN is there, NBC, Fox, and they're not showing the real truth. They're making fake news, taking it from different angles, making Pinchas look like a completely psychopath. Moshe Rabbeinu's not saying nothing. Ooh, a whole commotion going on there. Instantly, tweets are going up on Twitter, Facebook feeds, unbelievable. Everybody's going crazy. Now, of course, I'm adding all our terminology, but you have to understand, in the desert, they also had things like this. I mean, nobody knows what's going on. The news went like that. And what's the result? All the tribes now are angry. Whoa! They come and condemn. There was also politics then, by the way. Nevertheless, the tribes start to condemn. Mazeh, what is this? How can you not control this psycho? They call him Ben Puti, the son of the one who, I don't know what's the right way to translate. The thing is that the grandfather of Pinchas, the Parasha says that the grandfather was Aharon HaKohen, of course. But you know, every person has two grandfathers. Excuse me. The other grandfather of Pinchas was Yitro. And before Yitro converted and became a pious individual, he used to do idolatry. And worse than that, he used to overfeed the calves, the bulls, to be very, very fat. Why? So the sacrifice for idolatry would be even better. This is called lefatem. You push a lot. You know, when you want the animal to be fat and juicy, nowadays they inject air, antibiotics, whatever junk they inject into the animal so they'll look like fat and healthy, which is all nonsense. But nevertheless, he did that, the real deal, so the sacrifices for the idolatry will be even fatter and greater. So they called Pinchas the one who is like, and again, I don't know the word of when you're making the sacrifice, the animal fatter. In Hebrew, it's called lefatem. Make it fatter, make it juicier, make it bigger. So of course, the fake news is out. Nobody knows really what was going on there. They just see Pinchas committing murder, and everybody's condemning. The United Nations are sending all the, how do you say, when they condemn the United Nations, whatever, everybody's now against Pinchas. And needless to say, against everybody around. They didn't stop it, they didn't say anything. Okay. And what's, of course, the complaint? That he killed a Nasi, a head of a tribe. Not only that he committed murder, but you're killing a head of a tribe who innocently came to ask a legit question from Moshe Rabbeinu. Can you just imagine the fake news and how they're sitting there, the reporters, and talking about that? And needless to say, they're not saying that Pinchas came from Aaron. They're right away saying, no, he came from Yitro. Because the mother of Pinchas was the daughter of Yitro. And they're right away saying, oh, of course, he's coming from a very bad lineage. He's not coming from Aaron. He's coming from a bad lineage, a lineage that started in idolatry and coming from a bad place. Needless to say, we know the text, the Torah keeps saying that Pinchas is the grandson of Aaron because it wants to attach him to a very respectful and honorable lineage. But the people and the fake news said, no, it's the grandson of Yitro. Saying, in other words, he comes from a place of idolatry and he must be a murderer, he must be a horrible person. Needless to say, they put a committee together and they wanted to cast out Pinchas, what's called nidui. Cast out, to ostracize, This is a well-known concept in the Torah, which we have up until today. If the sages, if the Chachamim come together, they can cast out a certain individual. The person he cannot pray with other people, he cannot buy, he cannot do business with him. So the Chachamim, the sages at the time, they filed a request we have to ostracize Pinchas. He has to be cast out. Which means you can't talk to him, you can't deal with him, nobody can marry him or his kids, he can't do business with him, he can't pray with us in the minyan. Ooh. Can you imagine? And again, you have to understand, when we're reading it in the text, you're reading it in 3 verses and that's it, and the story's over. You have to really go back and imagine how it was. I'm telling you, I'm trying to paint it to you in some funny ways, but there was also then media and newspaper, well, not newspapers, but the same idea that word went out. Can you imagine how many seconds it took for the word to come out that Pinchas murdered Zimri? And of course, it wasn't like, oh my God, he did a great job. He saved the day. No, oh my gosh, don't ask, he went completely cuckoo. And you can imagine the fake news and how much stories came up on that. Nevertheless, comes out the Holy Divine Spirit and says, V'haita lo lezar'o brit kodesh. That's what the Torah says about Pinchas. You calling him a murderer? You're telling everybody that he's coming from a place of idolatry? The translation of the verse is, it shall be for him and for his descendants after him. Torah says, no, he's a holy man. Everything that he did good. That wasn't sufficient. The entire tribe of Shimon wanted to come and murder Pinchas. They all gathered together. Let's take him out. He's murdering our leader, because every tribe had a nasi, a leader, a prince, a president. The Talmud says that 6 miracles happened to Pinchas to stop the tribe of Shimon from killing him. It says that angels came down and started killing people from the tribe of Shimon, that they were occupied with fighting the angels, and all sorts of different miracles that the Talmud says that happened to Pinchas to save him. Okay. Now comes an interesting question, because you have to understand the lawsuit, the claim, how do you say when somebody condemns, condemning, the accusations? The accusations all that he was a murderer. Everybody came and pointed out on Pinchas, he's a murderer. He has to be treated like a murderer. And not only that, it's coming and attaching to him to the lineage of Yitro, like coming and saying, of course he's a murderer. He comes from the family, the mobster of the gangster of the generation. It's like today, when you want to put somebody down, you right away attach him to who he belongs to, his company, his family. So comes here a very interesting question, if this is the claim. If what he did is good and right, so what does it matter who the grandfather is? Right? Let's say right now, we out of the argument, and we're looking at what happened, and we're saying, let's assume for 1 second what Pinchas did was right. So who cares who's the grandfather? And if what he did is wrong, then he's a murderer. So what does it matter who's the grandfather? Either way you're looking at it, who cares who's the grandfather? If he's right, then great, he's right. And if he's wrong, he's a murderer. The grandson of Yitro. Okay. The tribes had a very strong claim, by the way. And this is where really you take the concept and learn how important it is to judge another person favorably. Because up until now, I'm with the tribes. They're right. They just see some young individual, I don't know the word in English, but maybe quick to act. Right away, taking a weapon and killing a person. Whoa, you're killing a person? It's not that you just rose and said, objection, you committed murder in front of many other people. And to the eyes of the beholder, it seems like, what do you want from him? He actually came to ask a halacha question to Moshe Rabbeinu. A very good question. If you're allowed to be with a woman from Midian, how am I not allowed to? Well, what makes you better? Kind of like what Korach came and claimed, and many others. Well, what makes you better than me? So on the surface, it looks like the claim is very good. I would now, just for the sake of the example, say, you know what, I'm with the tribes. They're right, he's a murderer. I don't see any good action here. But nevertheless, this is what comes to teach us how important it is to judge a person favorably. That really when the tribes came and claimed that Pinchas is a murderer, their claim and their intention was to protect the good name of Moshe Rabbeinu. They didn't go against Moshe Rabbeinu, because it seems like the attack was against Moshe Rabbeinu. So they came to defend the honor of Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what the text says. Now, what they didn't understand is how come Moshe is just standing there not saying anything. He's not telling to Pinchas to kill. The thing is that if you're looking at the commentary, when Zimri asked Moshe Rabbeinu, if I'm not allowed to be with this woman, how come you're allowed to be with your wife? Moshe Rabbeinu forgot the answer. Now Moshe Rabbeinu is not the type of individual that forgets. But we do see many times in the Torah that the law, the halacha, wasn't clear to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't find the answer. So Pinchas steps forward and says that he gives the explanation of the halacha, why he's not allowed to be with her. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Hakorei ta'igeret sheyaseh ota." You came and said the message, you do it. Moshe didn't say anything. He didn't say, don't do it. He didn't say, you're allowed to. Moshe Rabbeinu, he doesn't answer. He just stands there. So the tribes don't understand why Moshe Rabbeinu is not interfering. So they had a very good reason to suspect that something's going on here. That maybe because Pinchas, the son of Elazar, who's the grandson of Yitro, and who, like I told you, was originally an idolater, they can claim, so what if he seems on the surface that he did tshuva and repented and became a pious individual? How many people do you know that they look with a black suit, yarmulke, beard, everything, they're still criminals, and they're wearing the costume to pretend that they're repented and they're doing tshuva? You know, the funny thing is that when you see all the footages in court cases about criminals, they're all wearing a yarmulke. Suddenly you wear a yarmulke. When you were a criminal, you murdered, trafficked drugs, killed people, and now in the court you wear a yarmulke. So many people pretend that they changed their ways, and they really didn't change. So they were saying, so what if Yitro pretends? Maybe Yitro is pretending to leave his idolatry. Maybe he didn't leave his idolatry at all. Look where he's coming from. And this young guy is his grandson. Of course. As they say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So they had a very, very good claim. And they're saying, you're not saying to Pinchas, you're not righteous. You are a person, you are a murderer, and you have issues with anger. You just snapped and killed a person. Who snaps and kills a person? Comes the text and says differently, and it says, you're right. Yitro is the grandfather, but there's another grandfather involved here, and that's Aaron HaKohen. And Aaron HaKohen is called Ohev Shalom, Rodef Shalom. He loves peace, he pursues peace. Whatever Pinchas did is the right action. That's what the text says. Not only that it's the right actions, that Pinchas understood the anger of Hashem with this whole act. That's what the text coming to testify. You need a better witness. But like I said, the claim, they have a very strong claim. Why is Moshe not saying anything? If Moshe is not saying anything, you know, they say silence means you're agreeing. If you're not saying anything, you agree. So they had a very strong claim against Pinchas, but look at that. The Torah comes and testifies against Pinchas. He's the grandson of Aaron. Don't tag him to Yitro. And not only that he's a grandson of Aaron, he has the same attributes, that he's pursuing peace. And the Torah comes and says Pinchas was zealous to God. He saw and understood how angry God is with all this behavior, and what he did is right. And we have to understand, look at it in the point of view, like imagine you're looking at it like a lawyer now. How many times you saw a lawyer representing a murderer or a rapist or a molester? That's who you present. That's your case. You took this case. That I never understood, by the way. But how some lawyers they go and present a terrorist or a rapist or something. That's the case you took. But nevertheless, let's look at it in a, I don't have to call it a realistic eye, but let's look at it in a neutral eye right now. Let's pretend we are the tribes right now. And we're fed by the fake news, and everything is presented in the way that Pinchas is a murderer. Wouldn't you be standing in the side of the tribes saying the guy's a murderer? I understand, but nevertheless the Torah comes and tells us, no, you have to judge a person favorably before you call him a murderer. And the Torah itself comes and says, no, the person is pious. Pinchas is pious. He was zealous to God, and he wanted to protect Hashem's honor. He knew that Hashem is very upset with what's going on here, and he did the right thing. Okay. So back to our big question is that if we take this entire encounter, so we say, okay, with Pinchas it worked. Pinchas was held as a murderer. Everybody was pointing out he's a murderer. But the Torah comes and says, no, he's not a murderer. He's pious. He did right. So the whole thing worked with Pinchas. But it doesn't work with each and every one of us. The Torah doesn't come and tells the whole world how great you are when fingers are pointed at you or at another person. That worked for Pinchas. Great. Who says it's going to work for us? That the divine spirit is going to come and stand by my side. How many people the finger was pointed at them? He embezzled, he cheated, he raped, he took, and they're completely innocent. I guarantee to you that 50% of the people in jail are not guilty. 100%. Not 100% of the people in jail. At least 50% of people in jail, completely innocent, had nothing to do with it. Framed, completely manipulated. They had to find what's called a Seir Azazel. You know, the Seir Azazel is the goat that you throw off the cliff. Guaranteed to you. And how many people were blamed in murder and rape? And there are many individuals that I know that they were blamed for embezzling, raping, cheating. Nothing. Has nothing to do. No connection. And I'm sure you know that when a certain individual is in stake or in jeopardy, for them to lose their place, they're very easy. They turn the spotlight on somebody else. He's the thief. He's the murderer. It's not that I'm talking about something that is so disconnected from us. Now, maybe you're lucky that it never happened to you. But some people, it happens to them a lot. You know how many times people claim things about me? Horrible things. Not that I stole the bubble gum from a store. Now, how do you clean your name? How do you clear your name? How do you prove that it's not even you? Do you have the divine spirit, the Torah coming and saying, no, he's fine? If I will tell her things that people say about me, oh, Hashem Erachem. And many others, by the way. It's not that, unfortunately, many people, there's a pointing finger at them for whatever reason right now. I'm not going to start dissecting that. But what we see from that with Pinchas it worked, but it doesn't work with us. And needless to say, how many people you judge because you heard that they did something, nothing ever happened, no connection even. You have to ask yourself, how many people you judge because you heard, oh, he did this and that. Who said he did this and that? Did you confirm it? Did you check it? A certain individual that I know, there's rumors about him that he's touching women. He didn't touch anybody. And he tells me, nobody ever came and asked to confirm it. Did they ever put me in front of the woman? Did they ask the women? It's just rumors. And his name is completely ruined. And he says the same thing. Nobody ever questioned. Nobody ever asked. They point the finger. You touch women. Nobody ever came and asked me when, if you touched her. Where? When? When did it happen? Witnesses? Something? And this is one example out of many. I'm just telling you, this is something very common. And unfortunately, we are guilty in that ourselves, that you just heard so-and-so did this and that. Oh my God, really? I knew it. Okay. Let me tell you a quick story, which I shared this story a few times in the past, but I'll share it to you again. I think it will shed a lot of light on the situation. There's a very famous rabbi who lived about 200 years ago. There's an alley here in the holy city of Tzfat under his name. He's called the Khatam Sofer. Very famous rabbi, genius in the Torah, unbelievable commentary. He had a son who was almost or just as great as him, named Avraham Shmuel. He's known as the Ktav Sofer. And because he wrote a lot of the teachings of his father. Anyways, one of his books, he says a story that they lived in Eastern Europe about 200 years ago. And one time, this is a true story, one of the richest people in the city had an event. And of course, he made a big feast, a big meal. Since he was very generous, he was like the Gvir, donating to all the yeshivot, donating to all the soup kitchens. Everybody was there, and needless to say, the entire room was with all the top chief rabbis of all the areas in that generation. Everybody came. He was so rich and so charitable and supporting so many yeshivot and everything that literally all the guests in the room were extremely honorable rabbis. Chief rabbi of this city, chief rabbi of that city, head rabbi of this yeshiva. Okay. And of course, needless to say, very fancy, great food, great entertainment. Of course, Torah, not like dancing women. Nevertheless, at some point, this rich person stands on the stage and he gives over his little speech. And then he says, guys, I have a treat for you tonight. Everybody's okay, what? And he says, I have in my pocket a coin that is one of a kind. There's no such a coin, and it's original from the time of Bet HaMikdash, from the Holy Temple. Wow. And he says, there's no such coin. Nobody has such a coin. Somehow it came to my possession, an original coin from Bet HaMikdash. He takes it out, everybody's, wow, unbelievable, starts passing it around, everybody's looking, and if they had iPhones, they would take selfies with it, put it on Instagram. And sure enough, a few minutes pass, the coin is going from one hand to another hand. At some point, where's the coin? Where's the coin? Coin is gone. Chevre, guys, where's the coin? I don't know, I don't have the coin. I don't know, I gave it to him. Listen, the whole room here is full of honorable rabbis. Where's the coin? Okay, right away the person says, close, shut the doors, nobody's going out. I want to see where the coin is. Now in the room is only honorable and respectful rabbis. Now everybody's looking at each other. Somebody took the coin here? So the owner of the coin says, okay, close the doors, everybody take everything out of your pockets. One rabbi stands up and says, listen, that's not nice to do. That's not nice. Everybody here is honorable people, respectful rabbis. You don't do that. That can really, really hurt somebody. Don't do that. Now, of course, everybody's like, he doesn't want to empty his pockets. Maybe he has the coin. And he says, listen, let's wait 5-10 minutes. Maybe the coin will show up. Okay. Quiet in the room. You can hear a coin fall on the floor. So such silence. They don't know what to do. Everybody looking at each other. Few minutes pass. Okay, empty the pockets. The guy says, the rabbi says, listen, I don't think it's a good idea. I think you should wait a few more minutes. And needless to say, now the whispering is starting. Everybody starts thinking, okay, he took the coin. He's embarrassed. He's going to be caught. Baruch Hashem, a few minutes pass. One of the waiters finds the coin under the table. Here's the coin. I found the coin. Everybody's breathing now. Now they turn to this rabbi and says, why were you so afraid to take everything out of the pockets? Why would you stop everything? So he says, listen, I know it sounds crazy, but it happens to be that I also have this type of a coin. You don't have the only one. I also have. It's a gift. It runs in my family all the way back to Bet HaMikdash. I also have such a coin. And you know what? It doesn't leave my pocket ever. It's my good luck charm. And I also brought it tonight. And I knew that if I would take everything out of the pockets, you will find that I also have the coin. And then I would be held guilty. And Baruch Hashem, Hashem made an amazing miracle, and your coin was fine, but here's my coin. Exactly identical, there's two of them. Hevedan kol adam lekaf zchut. You have to judge every person favorably. Can you imagine what a disaster would happen? Okay, now we're back to the original question. Do I have to judge everyone favorably? There are some individuals I don't want to judge them favorably at all. So Rambam says something interesting. Maimonides. Rambam says, who do you have to judge favorably? Only a pious individual, only a tzaddik, or a Beinoni. Beinoni, not what the Baal Tanya says in the book of Tanya. Beinoni, that is half good, half bad, but more leaning towards the good, is like a good person, let's call it this way. But a rasha, no, a wicked person, you know the person is a thief, you know he's a crook, you know he's a cheat, no, don't need to judge him favorably. That's what Rambam says. Okay. There is an amazing book, a Chassidut, a book of Chassidut from about 100 years ago. It's called the Sfat Emet. And interesting also in the book of Tanya, specifically in chapter 30, both the Baal Tanya and the Sfat Emet says something very interesting. The Sfat Emet is Aryeh Leib Alter, very, very powerful book of Chassidut. And he says there something interesting. I'll say it in Hebrew and then I'll try to translate. He says, Tadun hakol lo rak et ha'maaseh. When you need to judge somebody favorably, judge everything, not just the act. What does it mean? Look at the background. Look at the motive. Look at the education the person got, where he came from, what he's dealing with. Maybe there's hunger, poverty, stress. Judge everything, not just the actual act. That's a very powerful statement. Take this great, strong teaching that judge everybody favorably, but don't judge that just that. How many times you stand in the street and you see a scenario, I'll give you one example out of many, you see a mother screaming at the child. And everybody's, whoa, lady, the poor child. Why are you judging her like that? Do you know that that child is a very difficult child? Do you know that that child hits the mother, answer back, stalks it? Maybe the mother is being patient for 3 years. Now's the time she lost it. And I'm just giving you one example out of many. Judge not the action, everything. Go and look what's going on here before you judge just the action. Unbelievable angle to look at this great teachings of judge everybody favorably. Take that, wow, that kind of sheds the light of everything. Judge everything. How does he say? Tadun hakol, lo rak et ha'maaseh. And again, don't judge the action, judge everything. Okay. Now comes the interesting twist. Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachia says, Vedan kol adam lekaf zchut. The chidush, the new twist is Eve jad et kol ha-adam. Add this hey, ha-adam, not the man, everything. That's the chidush that both the Baal Tanya and the Sfat Emet says. One letter, a change of a letter, and it makes a whole different way of looking at it. Okay, there's another commentary by Rabbeinu Bechaye, who disagrees with the Rambam. He's more or less the same generation. He disagrees with the Rambam. He says, no, you have to judge everybody favorably, because Rambam says only a tzaddik, a pious individual, and a beinoni. A rasha you don't have to judge favorably. Rabbeinu Bechaye says, no. You have to judge, he says, kol zman sheroeh bechavero davar. Anytime that you see something, no, sorry, you have to judge them favorably. And he says, kol chaver, any individual, even the ones that you know he's a thief. Because could be that 100 times he stole, but in this specific situation, he actually didn't. Could be that 100 times he slanders, and this specific situation, he zipped his mouth. So Rabbeinu Bechaye says, no. Every person, all the time. Why? He says something interesting. That, I'll read it and then I'll explain. Kol adam she'efshar lelamed et ha'maaseh shelo lekav zchut ad ken. Every person that specific action you can judge favorably, then you should do it. And like I said before, 100 times he stole. But that specific time that they pointed at him, that time he didn't. So if there's a possibility that in that specific time he's not guilty, then I'm sorry to tell you, you have to judge him favorably. And that's the approach of Rabbeinu Bechayei. And again, I'm not telling you now what to do. I'm just telling you, shedding the light over it. Now, what I would want to add is what we need to take from that, because you can choose the approach of Maimonides and says, I'm judging only the pious ones and the good people. A wicked person, I'm not judging them favorably. I don't want to. And by the way, I'm saying now as a side note, I'm excluding now rapists, molesters, terrorists, and many other individuals that we're not putting them in the category that you need to judge them favorably. You choose to do what you want. You know, I know a lot of people that they're looking at some leader, and you know, I'll be straightforward. You know, a lot of people are looking at our ex-prime minister. Well, here in Israel, they're changing prime ministers like underwear. So, ex-prime minister, at Bibi Netanyahu, a lot of people are judging him wrong. Saying, a lot of people are judging him favorably by saying, he's under a lot of pressure, there was a lot of force, he's not making all the decisions, and which can actually be right. Could be, because a lot of people are pointing a finger at him, saying he's wicked, he's a crook, he's guilty in everything that he's blamed, he did this, he did that. Could very much be that he's 100% guilty. But many people say, no, he's a prime minister, he's under a lot of pressure. Not everything that he says is coming from his mouth. So I'm just giving you one example out of many, because I want people to understand, because people then ask me, should I judge Bill Gates favorably? I don't care about Bill Gates right now. But you know what? If we're taking the approach of Rabbeinu Bechayei, maybe we can judge him favorably. Maybe he has a gun to his head. You know how many people, and if we were looking at the last 2 years, with everything that's going on in the last 2 years since the corona started, you know how many people said things and you don't see the gun to their head? Guarantee, by the way. There's a certain rabbi in Yerushalayim, not going to mention the name, who came out and told his congregation and people and students to take the vaccine. Later on when he was questioned, he says, I'm being threatened. My life has been threatened. He says that, my life is being threatened. Now, whether you should go out and say, guys, my life is being threatened, don't take the vaccine, or take the vaccine, I don't want my life to be threatened. I'm not here to judge anybody right now. I don't know how I would react. But when we're looking at situations like this, many people, their life, their families being threatened, and many other things, and they might say something. So do we judge them favorably or not? So this is another angle that we need to discuss in a completely different time. Let's leave this for now. Let's concentrate on me and you and people that you live amongst, people around you, family members, neighbors, and so forth. We're not going to start analyzing every individual if we have to judge them favorably or not. But nevertheless, the approach of Maimonides, you judge favorably the pious people and the ones who do good, and wicked people you don't. And the approach of Rabbeinu Bechayei, no, you have to judge everybody favorably, depending on the act. Look at the act. Because could be that in this specific act, we can judge him favorably, and in other acts, no, don't judge him favorably. And that can happen to us on a daily basis, that a certain individual is a liar, is a thief, or whatever. Usually he's guilty, and dafka today, he's not guilty. And he would need you to judge him favorably. I want to add on that another thing, because I want to focus right now not on the Bibi Netanyahus and the Bill Gates. Let's focus on people that we know, that we live amongst them. Co-workers, family members, neighbors, parents, and so forth. Let's not now go so far. Now you have to ask yourself a question. Let's now you deal with your kids. Do you always judge your kids favorably? I also have kids that sometimes cross lines and they get me very upset. But do I judge them favorably? Next, how about my parents? Do you always judge your parents favorably? They did these things to you, they didn't do. Your boss, your employer, your neighbor. Let's focus on that. I don't want to go now, spread our wings to think if we're judging Bill Gates or Netanyahu favorably. I don't care about them right now. I want to see with my own personal surrounding. We just learned from the Sfat Emet from the Balatanya, who says, don't judge the action, judge everything. Take the time to judge everything. Another twist or way of looking at it, when we are commanded to judge everybody favorably, and we're talking here right now, I told you, the group of people that are around us, When you judge a person favorably, you know what you do? You give them hope. Most people lose hope, don't have hope. They gave up on life, gave up on people, gave up on themselves, gave up on anything. And sometimes by you just judging them favorably, you give them a lot of hope. When Yeshua ben Prachya said that, Techav, I'm going to explain to you exactly what he said, by the way. You're going to be shocked. But the point is that when I'm talking about somebody close to me and I judge them favorably, at that moment, you gave them a lot of hope. When Yeshua ben Prachya says, Hevedan kol adam lekaf zchut, if I translate the word zchut, it's not going to work at all, because zchut can be translated as merit. Zchut can be translated as something positive. The Mishnah means judge a person favorably. To zchut means something positive. Everybody has something positive in them. Even the people, and again, I'm saying it over and over, I don't want my words being taken out of context. We're talking about people around us right now. Most people around us are normal and they have a lot of good things in them. When I judge them favorably, you know what I do? I flood their good, their zchut. And again, it doesn't sound well in English. That's why I said not once and not twice, Torah has to be learned in Hebrew. When I'm judging them favorably, zchut, then I'm nourishing their good. I'm empowering their good. By default, it will give them hope. I'm strengthening their good. Everybody has some good in them. The good, this is called shevach. The praise is stronger than the bad. You know how you use words sometimes can make a huge difference. You can tell your child, I'm disappointed. You killed him. Well, not physically, of course. Or you can say, I'm not so happy with your behavior. All different things. The same meaning. Total different thing. I'm not happy with what you did today. Okay, so today I'm not happy. Yesterday you did good. So how you choose your words, this can be either praising or the opposite. The praise is much stronger than the bad. So when I judge a person favorably, listen, I'm going to give you just an example. I come home, I had 100 shekel bill on my table, it's gone. You took it! I didn't take it. It wasn't here, you're the only one home. But I didn't take it. So am I judging that person favorably? No. Because in my mind, he was the only one home. The 100 shekels was here. But the person wasn't. Now how do I know? Maybe he's really not good. Maybe the wind went down and took the bill on the ground. You know how many times I blamed my kids or my wife for something being misplaced and then I found it, and what a fool I felt like? Oh, oops, it's here. I put it there. And how many times did it happen to you? And I don't know about you. I can tell you about myself. I was upset a few times with my wife and kids. Where's the keys? And then I find it in my pocket. Now that's off the topic. You are strong enough to come and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I blamed you. I made the mistake. More people says, no, they showed up. I found it over there. But I'm just giving you one example so that you can relate with what I'm saying. Many of the times, you don't judge favorably your parents, your kids, your neighbors, your workers, your co-workers, your friends, and really you are the one that did something wrong here. So to turn it the other way around, when you are judging a person favorably, when you're not quick to judge, you're basically praising the person. I'm not blaming you yet. How would they say in America? Innocent till proven guilty. So you know what you do? You're strengthening the good over the bad. Saying in other words, and this we have to know because right now people are in a very low place. Younger generation, the kids, you see around you, people are not in such a good place. Struggling financially, struggling with health, everybody's struggling with things. And the result is the end of the day, people lose their hope. People are hopeless. Can you imagine how much good and positive you contribute by strengthening another person right now? That's what we need to do, is to support each other, to strengthen each other with good words, with confidence. When you're judging a person favorably, you're basically telling the person, doesn't matter how many times you fell or failed, you can still get up and fix it. Your child has an issue with stealing. By pointing a finger, you're not judging him favorably, but that doesn't do any good. When you judge him favorably, I can't find the money, or directly you're saying that, you're giving the person hope that, okay, I stole 100 times, but I can still do tshuva. Here's the money. I'm sorry, I took it. Don't forget, when somebody is pointed a finger at and they're guilty, it's very embarrassing to come clean. Very embarrassing to come clean. So now comes a very big question. Why did Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachya said this statement? Why not Rabbi Akiva? Why not Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? Now I know it's a kind of a broad question because one can say that on any statement. Rabbi Akiva says, "V'ahavta l'racha kamocha ze klal gadol b'Torah." Loving another person like yourself is a big foundation in the Torah. Why did Rabbi Akiva say that? Why not Rabbi Meir? Which is not kind of an important question. But in this case, it's an important question. Why did Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachya said this statement, and why is that attached to him? I'll tell you why, and you're going to be a little bit shocked. He said that because of his personal experience. Now, somebody asked me that not too long ago about the authenticity of certain books, the Zohar, the Talmud, because many people, they talk very negative about these books. Oh, the Talmud is full of hate, and the Talmud said this, and the Talmud said that, and the Zohar is this, and there's distortions in the Zohar. The reality is that in some of the cases, words have been changed or removed from some of these books, by the way. And you know why? Because of censorship. 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago, when the Jewish literature was written, there was censorship. Representations from the church came, and if they didn't like what it said, they would burn the whole town down. Needless to say, the printouts or whatever, there had to be censorship. Because sometimes it would talk about the leadership, the Romans, the whatever. So many of these books, or you can't even call it a book, like the Talmud or the Zohar, the censorship, words has been changed or removed, or sentences was removed. Why? So chas v'shalom mainly came from the church that came and they didn't like what they're writing about the empire, the emperor, and so forth. Okay. There is a book, and it's called Chesronot HaShas. Shas is the acronym, the title of the Talmud. Chesronot is the missing pieces. You know how many missing pieces are in all these books? The Talmud is so smart and precise that in many of the cases, to get the answer, you have to go through 5 different tractates, and you put it like puzzle pieces together, and then you get the answer. And it's all censorship, that the information isn't going to be so obvious. And you find the same thing in the Zohar, in other books. So there's a certain book that is called Chesronot HaShas. What is missing from the Talmud? Okay. And why? Because they removed in the Talmud verses, sometimes a whole statement, sometimes a word, and only because of censorship. If you go to Chesronot HaShas, this book, and it's not like a little book, it's a book. Specifically in Tractate Sanhedrin, page 107b, it says about a story. It says a story. It says about a certain Tana, a sage, Yoshua ben Prachya. Yoshua is the name, Ben means the son, Prachya is the name of the father. At the time, there was an evil king, believe it or not, a Jewish evil king. If you're looking at the book of Kings, the book of Judges, you're looking at the entire Tanakh, you'll find that most of the leaders were corrupt and did a lot of bad. It's not only today. There was a king called Yanai who supported the movement that is called Tzdokim, that were, of course, rebelling against the Torah, and he killed most of the sages of Israel. There was also politics then, there was a lot of corruption then, and who would you kill? The Torah, because they come and present the truth. Kind of like what's going on today, by the way. Today's vaccines and other stuff, and then it was whatever they had then. Nevertheless, this king called Yanai killed most of the sages, so Rabbi Yoshua fled. He said, I'm next. They're coming after the rabbis. Why? Because we hold the truth. We can present the truth. We can testify against the government, the kingship, the king. So Rabbi Yoshua floods. No, floods, runs away. He takes with him a student and he goes to Mitzrayim, to Egypt. And why a student? It's because, again, you have to imagine, like, let's say in our generation, we have a Rav Kanevsky. He has a student that helps him. It's called a shamash. Carries things for him, sets the bed, helps him. Okay, so he takes his student and they run to Egypt. Okay, after a long while, they come back from Egypt. And on the way to Yerushalayim, they stop in a hotel. Something on the road. They need to rent a room. Okay. The hostess was very gracious, very kind, very polite, and treated them mamash like kings. Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya says to his student, wow, kama yafa achsania zot. How beautiful is this host? The student turns to him and tells him, that's not nice. What, are you looking at her and you're saying that she's beautiful? And Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya, needless to say, that's not what he meant. He meant to say, nice, this host is very gracious. She's very nice. She's unbelievable. But he used, kama yafa achsania zot. The student heard it or perceived it that he's saying, she's beautiful. And he tells his master, that's what you think? That this woman is beautiful? The student got upset, but the rabbi, Yeshua ben Prachya, got even more upset. Later on, the student asked him, what, you're looking at her eyes? Maybe they're hinting, maybe the day they were like with burqas and only see the eyes. I don't know. The point is that Yeshua ben Prachya was very upset at him. What are you telling you, judging me? You think that's what I'm looking at? Started a little argument, and Yeshua did not want to forgive him. He was very upset. The Talmud says, I'm talking about the Chesronot Hashas, Halach oto aish, that student went, vezakaf levena, and he built himself a deity, and bowed down to idol. Then Yoshua went to his student and told him, I understand that you misunderstood, that you thought I'm talking about the woman, that she's pretty. There was a misunderstanding. Let's forget about the whole thing. Water under the bridge, come back. Because it says that student went and built himself an idol and bowed down to it. So he tells him, do tshuva, come on, I'll forgive you, come back. Leave your idolatry. The student tells him, I can't. Yeshua tells him, why can't you? The student tells him, because I learned from you that if you sin by yourself, you can do tshuva. But if you caused others to sin, you cannot do tshuva. And I have caused many to sin. Can you already imagine who is the student? The student of Yeshua ben Prachya is Yeshu HaNotzri, or as he's known as Jesus JC. Now it comes and says all these problems that came out from this encounter could have been avoided if Yeshua ben Prachya would judge his student favourably. Can you imagine the guilt of Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachya? I could have judged him favourably, bring him closer to me and forgive him, and he wouldn't go out and build himself an idol and then make others sin. And needless to say, what came out of it. Now, Yeshua ben Prachya understands the heavy price that it was already too late. Therefore, he comes and teaches you, and he tells you, "Hevedan kol adam lekaf zchut," the importance of judging a first person favorably. He took it the wrong way, that the student is coming and telling, well, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at the woman. And of course, it was a misunderstanding. Happens. But now Yeshua really felt not only the importance, the severity. And can you imagine the guilt? And that's why this statement is so particular to Yoshua ben Prachia. Now, interestingly, there's a continuation to the story. And at the end of his days, he comes and tells him, repent. I'm talking about Yoshua ben Prachia. Comes to the other Yoshua and tells him, no, Khalas, we got the point. Repent, turn around, change your ways. Leave it, leave what you did. He understood that as long as the person is alive, you can fix. Can you imagine? Years passed. And he still comes and tells him before he dies, I'm talking about Yoshua ben Prachia, comes to his student, another Yoshua, and tells him, repent, come back, change. He understood that there's no point that you can't change. I mean, if you leave this world, that's it. But even at the last moment, last breath of your life, you can change. Saying, in other words, that this judging a person favorably is giving another person hope. You can change. You can do something. You can be a better person. Leave everything. Even if you sinned, you can change. We can understand from that, when you judging a person favorably is basically, in other words, not to lie. Because when you want to judge a person not favorably, you make up all the reasons why he's okay or not okay. That's lying. He did, but he said, and he took, and he... If you tell the person who you know is guilty, I know you're guilty, it's okay, but do tshuva. To point the finger, then you're not helping the person. To tell the person, okay, I understand, even if you were guilty, it's okay. I'm guilty of many things too, but do tshuva. That's the real judging a person favorably. I understand you failed, but you can do tshuva. I understand you went the wrong path, but stop here and don't let it become worse and change. The judging the person favorably is giving the person that you are looking at or judging the hope, the ability to change, the support. I will support, I will give, I understand. When you judge the person opposite, then you're shutting down all options. You are a thief. You are a liar. You slandered. I'm not going to accept it. And that's why I'm excluding, because a lot of people might say, yeah, but sometimes, listen, we're talking here we're looking at the big picture right now. If the big question comes, then you have to look at it. But we're talking in the general sense, the importance of judging a person favorably, because in that situation, you're really helping the person change their way. When you're tagging them with what they did, you're not giving them any options to change, even if it's in a direct or an indirect way. Saying, in other words, that even if you sinned, even if you failed, even if you messed up and failed, you can always change your way and fix what you did.